this is kind of an interesting interview for me because I've been a fan for a long time. And I think the first time I saw you was Defenders of the Faith.
Okay.
What was that, about 1984?
84, yeah, 84, 83, 84, yeah, that's right.
And the only reason I didn't see you before that is because I wasn't allowed to go to concerts then.
Okay.
So this is kind of an interesting one for me because we get to discuss this history of the band. You know, I'm sure you've had this question a million times, but when you first started this thing in 1969, could you ever have imagined that in 2022 you'd be doing a 50th anniversary tour?
Absolutely not, no. I mean, when we started out, we just wanted to see tomorrow morning, basically, you know, and carry on. It started out, obviously, like most things do, as kind of a hobby. We just pottering around the local area, doing shows when we could. That wasn't until 71. I mean, we spent 69 and 70 really learning our trade. It wasn't until Al Atkins came along in, or must have been probably the fall of 1970, that we became a coherent band, you know, with all departments filled, if you like, because none of the rest of us could really carry a song that well. And he came along, and a few months after that, we were ready to go. You know, I think it was early 71, March, I believe it was, in 1971 when we did our first show. But we never thought we'd be lasting 50 years. Even then, you know, it was still very much semi-pro. We were doing it basically because we loved it. Not that we've ever done it for the money, really. You know, we're just lucky that we made it. But yeah, I mean, the concept of someone playing popular music in their 70s, I mean, didn't exist back then. You know, I mean, the Bing Crosbys and the Frank Sinatras, they were still only in their 50s and their 60s, you know.
Right.
The rockers were still in their 40s when we were starting out. So the thought of somebody, you know, bouncing about the stage doing a very young man's job at the age of 17 didn't exist.
It must be exhausting.
Yes. Well, yes, it's enjoyable as well, which is obviously the primary motive these days, you know.
Well, for sure. Do you remember your first gig?
Yes, it was Essington Working Men's Club. It was a social club in not too far from Walsall, the area where we were brought up, you know, West Bromwich and Walsall. And I think there was something like 12 people in there, that's all, you know. I mean, obviously they hadn't got the slightest idea who we were at the time. And we, you know, didn't know what to expect. And they seemed to enjoy it, you know. None of them left anyway. It was good.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, men's clubs, anyway, it was a staple in the early days, you know. There's, you know, union clubs basically, and they were up and down the country, you know, everywhere. There's always a union club somewhere. You can always get a gig at these places, you know. Sadly, not many of them are there anymore, you know.